Okay, hello and welcome to an experimental thing I'm doing. I'm gonna read one of my posts here. We're gonna do that. We're gonna read it out so that you know what kind of delivery I was trying to make these lines sound like. All right, let's just get into it. Okay, this is Awards Game of the Year 2022. My most recent post because I never make any blog posts anymore. There weren't a whole lot of new games I played this year. There's mostly old ones. Because of this, I actually played so many old games I lost track of them. There won't be an Old Games of the Year post or something or section because of this, at least not a long one. Let's get that out of the way. They include, but are not limited to, Final Fantasy X, the remakes of Resident Evil 1 through 3, as well as 4, 6, 7, and 8. Uncharted 1 through 4, Final Fantasy VII Remake, Earthbound, and the first two Kingdom Hearts games. And also Tales of Fantasia, you can see it right there. So, you know. I also played Tales of Fantasia for the first time, and my verdict on it is, it's a technically impressive game for the time, fresh new combat systems, as well as cool music and graphics. But the story sucks and the act of playing it isn't fun. Also, times you just kind of have to figure out where the fuck to go because nobody tells you other than, we need to do/find the thing. The encounter rate is way too high, meaning you need to constantly stock up on holy bottles to lower it. God, the fucking holy... I had to buy so many goddamn holy bottles. Much of the balance is awful, as some boss fights are easy and some are balls hard. And then the last few dungeons, including the final one, are a huge pain in the ass. Oh man, let me explain. I can't even, like, there's this part where you and your party gets teleported if you don't have a specific item you gotta find, like, equipped on your character. And so you're just, like, without your party members, and I could not fucking find them. The encounter rate is too high, and I kept dying before I could get there. There were these fucking ninja enemies which could really easily kill you if you don't take care of them. It's just obnoxious. And like I didn't have a chance to say it, but like I have to go through the entire first part of it. And I was even like, apparently it just goes on and on and on and on and on. The dungeons in the Tales games got so much better after this. None of them are that long or that hard. The problem is that they're usually not very interesting, like visually or mechanically or anything like that in the Tales games. But I mean, at least they're not a fucking slog, right? Okay. I'm aware that the story was massively cut down from what they wanted to do, showing maybe a third of the story they wanted to tell. It was way more ambitious, and there was going to be a whole thing following a whole bunch of different characters, instead of mostly just follow Cress, who is pretty boring, honestly. But that's the problem. What we've ended up with is lame. Dallas should be a good antagonist. He was once a fair-ruling, peace-loving prince of an alien world who was just doing what he had to in order to save it. And the people of the protagonist's world treated him horribly and corrupted him. But in the end, all of the lives he took were still in service of saving his home planet. Good shit! I would have loved it if you learned any of that in the game outside of a fucking exposition dump after you beat him. Because that's all you get in the game. They had to make books and stuff that explained all the character they didn't give him in the actual game. This is true. There's a Tales of Fantasia novel that goes over his entire backstory, which they never fucking tell you in the game. They do not explain any of that shit. The fucking anime, the 4-episode OVA adaptation was way better at characterizing Daos. He just seems like a fucking generic evil bad guy for most of it. Then he has this one line partway through where he's like, I don't have any quarrel with you. And you're like, what? Oh, he only fights people who he has beef with? Oh, okay, maybe he's not so evil, I guess. And at the end, he's all like, "Yeah, I kind of respect you guys and all, but we got to do this." And then you fight him, and then he's dead. And then they're like, "Oh yeah, he's trying to save his home planet." It was so fucking. It was so bad. It was so done so bad. Oh. It opens with a quote from a fictional character, which, by the way, is a bad thing to do. Don't do that. That says, "If evil exists, it lurks in the hearts of men," alluding to the theme of the game, that the true evil was greed and violence and hatred and all that stuff. It made Dallas a monster, and it's what allowed people to later be manipulated by him. But you barely get any of that in the game itself. That's to say nothing of the paper-thin heroes whose characters do not ever evolve beyond their simple archetypes, or the lousy romance they shoehorn in. I swear to God, Arch and Chester fall in love after having 2 scenes where they interact with each other at all. That's the only scene, and do nothing but insult one another, implying that I guess they were both just being tsundere the whole time. It sucks. Later Tales games are way better, and they had to start somewhere. But what a rough start. Now on to the new games. Wow, yeah, I really didn't do much, huh? Best game I'm not in the mood for right now. Chrono Cross, the Radical Dreamers Edition. I love Chrono Cross, but I need to be in the mood for Chrono Cross. Hold on, excuse me. I have gas, I got burps. Turns out I just wasn't... Wait, hold on, sorry. I'm not going to cut any of this out. It's too much of a hassle, I don't want to edit. Turns out I just wasn't when the game came out. But it's a great game, and this is a nice re-release. A nice release. Release me from this torment, please. I don't care for the new models and art, but luckily you can turn them off. It sucks and is retarded that the new portraits are tied to the new models, so you only turn both on or both off. But it's not much of an issue for me, because like I said, I don't care for the new models either. I like the new art way less. It completely lacks the charm of the old art. It just doesn't look good in general. Very sterile, almost generic. But still, hey, it's Chrono Cross. Love it or hate it. I'd recommend it if you haven't. Just to see if you pick up what it's putting down. Or if you can't dig it. Because, you know, a lot of people can't. And I understand, I guess. But I like it. However, this release also includes, for the first time ever in the West, Radical Dreamers, Le Trésor Interdit. It's probably pronounced that horribly wrong. I know I did. Hold on. Le Trésor Interdit. I don't know how to pronounce French. Le Trésor. The Treasures. Treasure? What this is a text adventure game. That is a prototype of Chrono Cross, sharing settings and characters and even some plot points. You play as Surge, same as Chrono Cross. It goes with Kid, same as Chrono Cross, and Majil, not the same as Chrono Cross. To Viper, same as that one's definitely Frozen Flame, yeah. In the hopes of finding the Frozen Flame and getting revenge on the villainous Lynx. Oh, again, that's another one. Who killed Kid's foster mother. I won't tell you who that turns out to be. If that sounds familiar, much of that is true about Chrono Cross. The game also features Lord Viper's daughter, Riddell, and the old man who was once the leader of the Acacia Dragoons. Oh, I didn't say his name. Actually, I don't remember his name. Oh, and the Einlancer is an important sword and sister sword of the Masamune. The game plays kind of like a visual novel, but with battles. Text describes where you are and what options you have, and you choose which option you want to take. Which way do you go? Which book do you look at? Where do you check for something? Stuff like that. In battle, you have a bunch of options as to how to fight. Do you want to try to tackle the goblin or dodge the goblin, for example? Each time the battle will start to play out differently, and you'll need to gauge the situation and choose which will allow you to avoid damage and cause it. You have invisible HP, which only really able to be quantified with how Surge describes the situation after the battle is over. If he says he's banged up but could do worse, it's about half. If he says he's in bad shape and needs to be careful, he's low. You can find both through certain story events and randomly from some of the encounters you have, ways to heal yourself, but they're limited. An example is you can find potions, or you could like find a thing that'll heal you, like maybe you'll drink some tea and feel better. It's a fun game for what it is, and can be beaten in about one sitting. But it's fairly unique as a fairly unique SNES game, with a lot of cool ass pixel art and good music, as well as a killer atmosphere. Oh boy, is it! Man, I can't even just like try and get into that. It's like I don't have the words for it, but it's so good. You feel like you're in that fucking Viper Manor, man. The story is interesting, even if it's never followed up on. Oh, it has multiple endings to get, just like Chrono Trigger. It's a cool game. And it's great to have it here in Western territories. I own a reproduction cartridge of the Aeon Genesis fan translation, 2004, but it was never officially released in English until now, or released physically at all. It was put out via the Satellaview, which is some kind of satellite-based download service Nintendo did in Japan, which offered several games, including A Link to the Past BS. There's some kind of special version that I think is like the progenitor of like Zelda randomizers that they put out on there and people really liked. A bunch of other games though. That's right, we've been doing digital downloads since the fucking 90s. I think Sega had something like this. Was it called Sega Channel, or was that something else? I feel like that might have been a Dreamcast thing, Sega Channel. I don't remember. I know they did do something like that. This might have been digital only, which is why I'm glad I had the repro. But it's still great that we Burgerlanders and Bonglanders can now play this game officially as well. If you don't know what Bonglander is, it's not talking about like the weed bong. I mean like bong, like the. Go look up what is time, how many bongs is it? It's pretty funny. Anyway, blast from my past, but also firstborn. Alan Wake remastered. You can see it there. That's what it looks like. So, it's Alan Wake. There's not a whole lot more to say other than that. I like Alan Wake a lot, almost entirely due to things other than its gameplay, which is a solid foundation and is fun at first, but gets old kind of fast. The design and structure of the game doesn't elevate the mechanics. Rather, it makes them get old. You're going to be wandering around the woods for a while, shooting dudes after you destroy their darkness shields with your flashlight or flares, and then finally you'll get to do a new story segment. The best parts of the game are basically walking sim parts like in your Sony movie games. It's a game that has a lot of personality and heart that kind of makes up for its shortcomings, and is something I find endearing, but you might not. Like most Remedy games, aside Max Payne, which people kind of universally love. I played this back around when the time it came out, I guess, on the Xbox 360, back when I had one of those. Mine Red Ring, by the way, and I never got a new one. Which, I still kind of want to, because when the fucker... Lost Odyssey Remaster when? When is it gonna leave the 360? When is it gonna leave... Can I have it on PS4? Can I have it at least on PC? I could probably do that, maybe. Jesus, come on. I want my Lost Odyssey back, damn it. I liked it then, I like it now. But it definitely is a Western game of that era. Still, it's nice to revisit it. What isn't is the issue with this port, which is that it has a graphics mode, which makes it stutter and cause my PS4's pan. Let me start this over again. Fuck, maybe I might cut this out. I don't know. I don't want to. This is a lazy, half-assed video I'm making. What isn't is the issue with this port, which is that it has a graphics mode, which makes it stutter and causes my PS4's fan to go into maximum overdrive. See, I made a Stephen King reference because the game's inspired by Stephen King's work, and sound like a jet plane taking off. No, really, it was like, Jesus Christ, like, you should have heard it, like no matter what I was looking at, no matter what I was doing, it was like 20 to 25 frames per second. It was going like it was just horrible. My God. It was killing. It was dying. It was exploding. Performance mode is great though. Runs at a solid 60 FPS and looks just fine to me. In fact, I couldn't tell the difference between the two modes. No, really. I took screenshots. Multiple times I took screenshots when I switched back and forth. And I looked. I could not tell the fucking difference. I mean, maybe the graphics mode was trying to run it in fucking 4K, and so if you had a 4K TV, you could tell the difference, and that's why it was so killing itself, right? But I mean, it really doesn't matter because if it tanks the frame rate anyway, what's the point, right? The PS4 Pro is supposed to be able to run things in 4K at 60 FPS, right? I'm pretty sure, and the PS5 is can do 8K. They can run games 120 or something. I don't know about that, but yeah, it's bad. Yeah, it's really bad. So probably some kind of specific lighting thing is what. Yeah, I was thinking that too. It kills itself the most when it was sunny, or like at the evening times. It was less bad when it was at night when I switched onto that, but still, It was bad. It wasn't good. The big problem is, base model PS4s and Slims don't support these modes, you just get the one. And it barely fucking runs. It doesn't stutter. It chugs. Basically unplayable. I don't have first-hand experience of this, but a friend did. I let him borrow it. Try to play it on his PS4 Slim. And it just wouldn't... It was really dying there. Fucking... If it was killing my PS4, his PS4 was a shambling corpse at that point. Goddamn. So good job, assholes. If you didn't upgrade or just buy a Pro as your first like me, I have my reasons, you're screwed. Well, unless you have a 5, I bet it runs great on there. But who the fuck does aside YouTubers? Literally the only people I can confirm have one is people who bought scalped units, or YouTubers who had the money to buy it at launch. This is true, by the way. I keep seeing all sorts of YouTubers say, "Oh yeah, I got a 5," and I'm even really small channels with not even 50k subs, and I'm like, how the fuck did you get a PS4? I mean PS5. How did you do that? They're not in stock anywhere. It's not even a matter of I can't afford one right now. I can't, they're not buyable. Anyway, next we got Bare Minimum Effort Award, Crisis Core, Final Fantasy VII Reunion, which I've seen people say, no, it's a really good one. No, it's not. I don't have a lot to say about this. It's Crisis Core. It's got a lot of story problems, but also got a fantastic ending that absolutely sticks to landing. What? Man, I fucked up here. But it's also got a fantastic ending that absolutely sticks to the landing on. It sticks to the landing and makes up for a lot of its issues with what? I see. I think. Okay, so what this should be is absolutely sticks to the landing and makes up for a lot of my issues with it. Hold on a second. I needed to take a drink. I don't usually talk this much. I am an introvert, and I'm typically very quiet unless I'm talking too much about a thing I like to a friend. Let's see here. Zack's a good character. The gameplay is fun for a PSP game, and overall I like it, even if I've got problems with it. And this is just that game, but with fancier graphics. Not even, better graphics? Just fancier? Honestly, I would have preferred a straight-up remaster instead of creating new graphics, because that's practically what this is. They quite literally just added a new coat of paint over this. The controls are the same. The cutscenes animations are the same, including the awkward, definitely a PSP game stuff they've used. all the FMVs from the PS3 version, which are slightly pixely from from compression artifacting. Sorry, it's just so lazy. Really, that's true though. The FMVs are like extremely pixely, like just like man, guys, compress like I mean I know that those were made in like 480p, but like come on, you got to be able to do something with that. All of the assets straight up reused from remake. The things that are different are the voice acting, which isn't as good, so I turned it to the Japanese VO. The graphics. The Buster Sword now comes with a stance change that you can activate. Battle animations look different. This is actually not true. There is a couple more things. Like for example, like the way the actual combat feels, like the way like the way you're actually swinging the sword. It's not just the animation of it. Like it's an actual combo now. Originally, when you attacked, it was just like you press the button and he did a sword swing. You press the button again, he does another sword swing animation. But it is like kind of 1-to-1 almost, you know. Like it feels more like you are pressing the square button to choose attack, you know. Like it's even like it's one step removed from like Kingdom Hearts, right? So it really does feel like that's what's going on, and it does feel more like you're just comboing in the remake. But still, it is mostly the same game, and I kind of just would have. I prefer the way it worked in the original anyway. Although, yeah, they do have some control things, like some quality of life improvements, like you know the way you select skills and stuff is easier now. They're mapped to like face buttons instead of, you know, you don't have to like scroll through the menu. There you go. I don't even like the new graphics either, which is true. They're kind of ugly. Seriously, just straight up upscale of this would have been better. But hey, I guess I could just do that in an emulator. Well, they kind of build this as more than just a remaster, which technically it is because they've actually remade some stuff. But why this half step? Either remake it on the level of like Spyro and Crash ones, or just upscale it. Hell, the latter is lazier and people would be fine with it. Also, apparently they included fucking stock images. What? But that's, I mean, yeah, I mean, like, it is kind of like the Spyro one, but not really. Because they, like, redid all the animations for those games. They really did redo the whole games. And in this, they clearly just used, like, most of it as a base model. Game of 2016. One Shot. World Machine Edition. One Shot is a cool puzzle adventure RPG maker game that was later expanded upon into an even better version that was released in 2016 on Steam. Which, by the way, yeah, the original version is from like 2014, I think, so it predates Undertale. Do not say that it's an Undertale ripoff. Do not say it's a quirky Earthbound-inspired RPG or, you know, an Undertale clone, because it's not. It's also not even an RPG, so there you go. One Shot is a very meta game, way more than Undertale could ever hope to be, yet it works incredibly well with how it justifies it in the narrative. Well, it does in the true ending, at least. Even then, before then, I feel like it was done well in a way that didn't make me annoyed, right? Like, there are a lot of games that try to be all meta, and it's like, that just makes me feel like none of this fucking matters, because, like, the characters aren't, like, the characters just know that it's a story, it's not real, and everything's gonna be fine, and, like, it just makes it feel like it's just actors in a movie, you know, like, they're just actors, right? But everything feels so real and dire in One Shot. Like, no matter how often, like, even when the characters realize that, which I'll tell you, it's not literally fictional within the story. There's a whole it's a whole thing. It's actually a really cool explanation for why it works this way. You still gotta really suspend your disbelief, because if you start to think about it, you'll be like, hey, wait a minute. Wait, no. Because, it's if you don't think about that part, it still works within itself, being totally meta like this. And in fact, the console version works even better, because it's like a game within a game. Like, the game you are running is like a virtual computer on which the game is being run. So, like, it works doubly well, but not as effective with what it wants you to do. You'll see if you'll play the original version, but an example is that while the world and its people are just programs, protagonist Nico is not. Which did I actually just spoil this shit? I think I did. Oh well. Oh well. I didn't even think about that. He is from another world, and is in this one, and you must help him leave. He's supposedly the chosen one. I suppose I should have said, I mean, they're programs because, like, a lot of them are robots, for example, Yeah, I'm trying to save it. I might want to rewrite this. Oh well. Whatever. You'll have to find out what the fuck I mean by that. He's supposedly the chosen one, who will take the sun bulb to a large tower in the center of the world and replace the burnt-out sun, saving all. Of course, it's not perfect. The world will still be in decline, but they'll at least have that damn sun back until the new one goes out. The story is one of that struggle. Is it even worth it? To get Nico there, Nico talks to you, have to guide him. The game takes your computer's name or your account's name on the console and starts at the start and says, you only have one shot. Insert name. Whatever your name is. It's kind of cool. In the original version, in the PC version, it's really like it boots you to like windowed mode if you're in full screen, and then a prompt shows up that you have to click OK to. It's really great. When that happened, I was like, holy shit, this game hacked my fucking computer? Did I download malware? What the fuck? You can also tell Nico it's not your name and input your real one, because my name is not an open letter. That's just my PSN username. To solve many of the puzzles, you need to go outside the game window. To find files the game places on your computer. One early puzzle, for instance, requires you to find a save code in a text file. They get more elaborate and inventive from there, and it really gives you a greater feeling of attachment to this story, in addition to being mind-blowing your first time around. You gotta solve these puzzles, with your own computer. It makes you feel less like playing a game and more like helping someone in the only way you can. It's cool. I said something and not someone, but So, with this whole conceit, how does this work on console? Well, it doesn't. So for consoles, you play the game on a virtual OS, on which the files are placed. It's kinda cool. But now it's like the game you're playing is this fictional computer on which the game one-shot is installed. It doesn't have as much impact, but it is a neat way to play it. I really do say this, like, if you've already played it, you want a different way to play it, it's kinda cool. But other than that, if you don't want to do that. Play it on PC first. Definitely play it on PC first. I don't recommend this version if you haven't played it before. Just get the PC version, and in that case, a toaster could run it. This is true. It's pretty low weight. Your computer will run it, I guarantee it. Unless it's from like 1990 or something. But if you have, it's a neat way to play, like I said. Plus, it has some new stuff, like new artwork in the form of wallpapers and character profiles to collect. Game of 2020, a Mori console version. That's right, it came out the same year. Man, I've already talked about Omori in my last Game of the Year post, which we'll go to that. Although I wonder. Wait. Oh man, it hasn't scrolled. Oh. Well. Great. What's the point then? Hold on. Refresh. Oh yeah, now it's no. Wait. Nope. That just refreshes the page. What's the point of this then? Oh well. I'll figure something. This will just be an audio thing. The only thing you would have been able to see is fucking just the page anyway. Whatever. This video is gonna be super boring. I said earlier you can see the Tales of Fantasia there. No, you can't. I don't get. Yeah, what is the point of this then? If it doesn't scroll. If it doesn't scroll. Will this show up in the recording? If it doesn't scroll, what's the point? Hold on, how do I get this centered? I guess this is centered enough. Whatever. This is gonna suck. I knew it was gonna suck, but it's gonna suck in a different way now. Okay, I'm still gonna read that for my 2021 Game of the Year post by Prado Atomori. This port isn't bad. I'd say it's pretty good. Oh wait, hold on. So I have nothing much more to say. Still one of my favorite games of all time, will probably remain that way. This port isn't bad, and in fact I'd say it's pretty good, actually. It has some new original content that I didn't really do, but hey, it's there. I did do the new boss with Boss Man Hero, but that's it. I wish they'd added something to the true route, as all the new stuff is in the Omori route, but still. The Omori route is the alternate route and isn't as good, by far, but not even close. In the race, the Omori route comes in like 10th out of like 15, while the true route is like number 1, baby. The issue I have is some bugs. One I encountered is beneficial, as I forgot to pick up a key item at one point, but the game still registered as if I had later on. Still don't know what that is. Maybe I did pick it up and I just don't remember it, but I'm pretty sure I forgot to. One is a minor issue, which is that upon collecting all items needed to access the Abyss, the game crashes. It's a fake crash, and then starts up where you got the last one. The game now permanently starts up where I got the last one. It might be because I got the last one at the start of the Abyss, as it plays a scene where it opens up. This scene plays when I boot up the game now, even when I'm on the route where you can't do this dungeon. It's extra weird because when on that route, you can't load saves from the other. Literally, like when you're on the true route, it does not allow you to load saves from the Hikikomori route. It's weird. And I think I know why, right? Like once you've locked into that, like you gotta restart if you want to do that, or you gotta load an earlier save where you haven't locked yourself in to one route or the other, right? So that you can't, like, say, make a save near the end of the true route, load a save in the Hikikomori route, save over that save, and then, oops. Well, you can't do something like that. In addition, the game also erases all saves made in the 3rd slot, I believe, which I assume is where it stores the autosave for the crash. Luckily, you can get to the load screen from in-game, so it wasn't that bad, but it was still annoying. But it doesn't really matter in the end, because it's a good game, and I love it. And that's something that only happens if you do the less interesting story route, which I don't recommend unless you're obsessed and want to 100% complete the game like me. I got all the trophies. The Platinum Trophy for Omori is 1.5% rare. I'm very proud of that. I'm like, damn. Do play. Actual new game I played this year. Final Fantasy Origins really last year? Damn. Feels like it was like a couple years ago at this point, but I guess, yeah, it was like really early in the start of the year. Finally, a game that's actually... Oh, wait a minute. Hold on. We need to do, We need to do... my thing I said about Omori. I want to read this. Yeah, here we go. What did I have as game of the year 2020? Whatever, it doesn't matter because it's Omori, the retroactive game of the year 2020. Because it came out on Christmas 2020. Boy, how do I explain this one? I'm not nearly as enamored with it as I was a couple months ago, but that's because this year's game of the year has hooked me way too strong. All the energy and mental space I was using for it got transferred over to it, because I just can't care about two things that strongly at the same time. After I beat it for the first time, however, Omori was cemented as one of my favorite games of all time. It's ironic, too, because during my first playthrough, I was sitting there going, you know, this is really cool, but it could be done so much better. Then I got to the end and I was like, yo, never mind. I have played it 3 times now. That's more now. I think it's like 5. And it's not short. It's about 25 to 30 hours if you're doing all the side stuff and not rushing it. Somehow, and this was actually me looking up guides for some of the optional stuff, I think, part of it, and leaving it running while I did other shit, I think. Somehow, my first playthrough took me 50 hours. 50 hours, man. I don't know how the fuck that happened. But I went back and played the game's alternate route. If you're expecting something like Undertale's Genocide route or like a Yoko Taro game alternate route, well, you're out of luck there. The biggest change happens in the last third of the game. And other than that, you actually get to do less. I did the alternate route, tired of the Hikikomori route because your player character remains a shut-in. And then I played the true route again, because playing a bad ending route and then quitting, it feels like you doomed the protagonist to me. Like, that's just where the game's world is at, and that's where it's gonna stay until you get the good ending. So yeah, I played like 3 times in a row, which is saying something because it actually has big pacing issues. I'm not exactly selling you on this, am I? Well, what I'm trying to say is, I was so into it that I replayed this 30-hour game 3 times in a row. And currently I have about 100 hours logged. I played this one for 100 hours. It's not Persona 5, it's not Tales of Vesperia. It's just Omori. What even is it? Well, Omori is an RPG Maker indie game with a cute art style that hides darker themes, and is about depression. It's... Wait, hey, stop. Where are you going? Oh, right. Yeah, I know. Yet another indie game about depression. Yet another indie game that looks cute, but is actually fucked up. It's another quirky Earthbound-inspired game. Which actually, there really aren't that many of those. People act like there are a billion of them. Pretty sure I played all the ones anybody knows about, and there's only like 5? 6? I haven't played Citizens of Earth, but I know you fuckers ain't talking about Citizens of Earth. Ain't nobody talking about Citizens of Earth. Do you even know what Citizens of Earth is? Yeah, exactly. You guys want to talk about how this genre is fucking oversaturating indie games, puts a plague on our nation. You don't even fucking know all of them. Fuck you. You're being like, Lisa the Painful, which I haven't played, and Undertale, which I haven't played, came out really close to each other, and then Omori came out, and that's basically the same year as the other. Oh man, there's too many of them. Like, what are you even talking about? Unless you just play so many fucking indie games that you play all the shit ones, and you're like, you're going in talking about games I'd never even heard of. Because I know every once in a while, like, you can look and you'll see, like, oh, somebody's making this game which is inspired by Earthbound, and it's like, oh, this looks really generic and stupid. And then nobody ever talks about it, and I never think about it again. And I forget that it exists. Except for when I think really hard about it. And yeah, like, if you're playing those, like, no shit. Like, indie games in general are plagued by this kind of thing. Anytime something is popular, Five Nights at Freddy's. How many mascot horror games are there? Like, you can't judge an entire genre by by people who are just cashing in, right? And I guess I get part of the issue is, like, people at this point, if that's really what's going on, if there are really that many of them, if this is a genre that is actually plaguing indie games, and not any of the other things like pretentious PT-inspired walking sims, which is my real big issue with indie games, aside from the mascot horror stuff, and generic boomer shooters played primarily by Zoomers who've never played an actual boomer shooter from the 90s. If that really is the case, if there really are that many of them, I understand the idea of thinking, like, oh, well, you know, this is probably another one. But I mean, give it a chance. If everybody's saying it's great, then maybe it's good. If you're just not into that genre, I understand. A lot of times, like, it's just like, I'm just not into a certain kind of thing. It doesn't look like I would be into it at all. Everybody thinks it's really great, but it seems like some really generic stuff that it's only popular because people haven't seen it before. Like, it's just we haven't had one of those in a while, right? And then that pops up, and then people are like, oh, hey, that's it's really amazing. I've never seen that before. In some ways, Omori is kind of that for a lot of people. So is Undertale. But for me, both of those games are... It's because they're so heavily, like, rooted in and inspired by the games that came before them that they're inspired in, and they do unique things that really set them apart. Both of them have a really impactful for me, and are very good stories with good characters. Mostly fun to play. Well, Undertale is more fun to play, honestly, than Omori. But, you know, I'm getting sidetracked. Really, let's just get into it. Okay. But yeah, it's true that there are a lot of indie games that are basically about depression. Omori is not really about depression, by the way. There are a lot of games that look cute and are actually fucked up, like the mascot horror games. And you know, Doki Doki Literature Club. But hey, you know, I do kind of get it. Not because of the Earthbound thing, but, like, I get it. In fact, it's one of the reasons why it took me so long to get around to it, despite showing an interest. I saw it and said, wow, that looks cool. But then I thought about it and said, maybe not. But I like Yume Nikki-inspired games, which it's way more of than Earthbound. And I like RPG and Maker games in general. I mean, not, like, there are a ton of them and they're just really generic and bad. Like, you can go, like, if there are people who play them, and there are a lot of them, and they're really lame. I tend to go with the ones that actually stick out, and are doing more than just, you know, I made a puzzle-based narrative game with RPG Maker. Remember, it's not the premise, the plot, the character archetypes, the tropes used, it's the execution. And Omori is incredibly well executed. To start with, in addition to the state-mandated trigger warnings the game throws up upon launch, really don't like those, though. I really don't. The title screen is melancholic and monochrome. All that's there is the simple menu options, a close-up of some black and white child, the title card, and a white void of a background. Oh, and a haunting and somber-sounding piano piece. I have a link to it, but I'm not gonna edit that in or anything. After that, the first thing you see upon starting a new game is that the same child from the main menu in a white void with very little in it. A black light bulb hangs from a ceiling that can't possibly exist. A white door sits there with no frame and on no wall. There's a white picnic blanket with a laptop, a sketchbook, a box of tissues, and a cat. This is all that's there. Try to explore and you'll either loop back or get teleported back by strange hands with a red outline. This tells you immediately that the game is, in fact, not cute and fun, and clearly hides darker and sadder truths about itself. This is important to do, because while it's good to shock and surprise your audience, from a writing and directing standpoint, you need to establish tone. You can't just open with happy, fun, cute, and then halfway go, oh fuck shit, it's actually dark. Because that's obnoxious and feels like you bait switched your audience. And it's just bad writing and fucks up the tone. It's one of the reasons why I don't like Doki Literature Club. Omori does what is needed. You establish a tone at the start, and then thrust the player into the happy and fun and cute. This causes intentional tonal disconnect. You're distrustful of the pastel colors and silly playful children. Until you aren't. You get lulled into a false sense of security, which can then be yanked away from you. Omori is masterful at this. After a tutorial/introduction section, something spooky as shit and highly concerning happens to one of the characters. And then you wake up. See, Omori is a game about two different worlds, explored by two different characters. The world of dreams and the world of reality. The protagonist, Sunny, you can rename him, but please don't, wakes up after the dream turns into a nightmare, and proceeds to go and try and get something to eat, only to experience a waking nightmare instead. The game shows that our little main character isn't in the best mental health, and is hallucinating things which seem to be tied to an unknown trauma. After another stint in the colorful dream world called Headspace, in which protagonist Omori, hey, that's the title, goes on an adventure with his friends to save another one of his friends who has gone missing, you wake up again and there's a knock at the door. If you open it, you'll find Sunny's friend Cal, who is a lot taller than the Cal you see in his dreams. Sunny has been locking himself away in his house for an unknown reason, dreaming of being with his friends, while they've been out living their own lives for 4 years. Cal has grown up in that time. Going with Cal, you discover what's happened to Sunny's friends in this time, and learn more about why it is he'd become a shut-in and dream of better times to begin with. You meet Aubrey, who is no longer the black-haired, pink ribbon-wearing girl in his dreams, but a pink-haired, nail-bat-wielding gang leader. A delinquent who acts out her frustration with her friends abandoning her through violence. These friends abandoned her because Sunny's sister, Mari, died, and it broke them apart. Another friend is Hiro, strongly implied to have been in a romantic relationship with her, who has buried himself in his studies to become a doctor instead of reconnecting with friends or even really addressing the grief he feels. Kel wants to talk it out with people and be there for his friends, but he responded by trying to let everyone have their space to mourn, only for it to seem to them like he just didn't care. Basil, Sunny's best friend, is very clearly on his last legs and can't even take care of the plants and flowers he used to love tending to anymore. Everyone is dealing with the loss differently, and Sunny's way is isolation. However, he ends up going with Cal because he's moving in 3 days. This might be his last chance. Is it fear he may never see his friends again that drives him to break his 4-year trend? Or is there something else? I hope that makes you interested, because the game does have a lot of issues. A big one is pacing. Too much time is spent in the less interesting Headspace. Not to say there isn't plenty of interesting things about Headspace. In fact, there's a lot. If you find the optional stuff, there's some deep-ass lore that implies it may have existed before Sunny. Like it's only been molded by his mind. That said, for every mysterious optional NPC, there's 3 more fairly boring treks through a dungeon that outstays its welcome. It's all fun and charming at first, But honestly, after the first one with Captain Spaceboy, that charm wears thin. Sweetheart's Castle is notoriously petted and not that interesting. The Dream World's characters can be argued to all be symbolic of some aspects of Sunny's psyche or life in some way, but it's hard to pin them down as that, and might be a coincidence. Might be reaching on that one. There's a reason for these parts of the story to exist. A lot of them, in fact. But they really should have been cut down. It wouldn't have been as much of an issue if I wasn't just thinking, yeah, this is fun and all, but I really want to get back to trying to reconcile with Aubrey and helping Basil. That's the big issue. It keeps you from the real meat of the story most of the time. And I get the reasoning behind that as well as the story slash symbolism reason for it. But respect the player's time? Properly portion out your story to maximize investment? The good news is that everything after you collect all the mysterious keyboard keys you need is just absolutely 100% gold. Perfectly paced. Constantly effective. Wonderfully atmospheric. And is sometimes harrowing. I just, I would have preferred more time in the real world. Especially because the characters, while incredibly well written, endearing, and contributing so much to the story's themes, aren't as developed as I'd like. I feel like we needed more time and more days to flesh them out, as they really needed. Or maybe it's more like deserved, because they're really fantastic. I mean that. It's just that sometimes the game has a bit of an issue with telling and not showing, and could have made them even more fantastic if it spent the time to do that and delve deeper into them. What am I saying? They're my top 10 favorite casts, but I love them all, but it doesn't really matter, but still. And I still kind of feel this way in some ways. Maybe it is just they're so good that it left me wanting more. But I do feel like there are angles to the characters that could have been, capitalized on more than they did if they had had more time to tell the story. It just has to get across the things that are very important. The characters are interesting. They have depth to them. They're extremely likable and understandable, no matter how many times, no matter what they fuck up in doing, right? You get it. You sympathize with them, and they're really great. Their dynamics with each other are amazing. I love them. I love them to bits. They're my precious children, and I wish them the best. But there's definitely some things they could have done. Hero especially. He's only there for really one of the 3 days, and most of that day is spent finishing up Aubrey's storyline and working on her character arc. It's why, Sunny, Basil, and Aubrey, my 3 favorite characters, are the most developed characters of the game. Kel's with you the whole time, but he doesn't really... You don't get to learn that much about him, and he's an uncomplicated character, but there's a lot of things they could have done, to, really get certain aspects of his character across. My interpretation of one of the things he was doing, I was thinking, he might have thought, well, Aubrey's really annoyed by me, right? She's always I'm always getting on her nerves. We're friends, but also, I can be really annoying. She's, I'm probably the one she wants to see the least right now. Right? Because it's just going to make it worse. I'm just going to annoy her, and she's going to be mad on top of being sad. I'll just leave her be for a while, right? I'm sure she doesn't want to see me. And that's a reasonable thing for someone as young as Kel to think, right? He's trying to be considerate. In reality, of course, she would have taken anyone, especially Kel, honestly. To know that Kel, the kid who was always annoying her, who grosses her out, who, who she thinks is so dumb and immature, would come to her and be all like, hey, you doing okay? She'd be oh, so happy. And that's something he never brings up. But that's really what it comes off as, right? I am complaining about it telling and not showing. But also, it doesn't even really show that. It's a conclusion you could draw, for what's set up about the character, and as a writer, you would want to do something like that. It's a really good idea, but it misses a lot of its opportunities to do things like that. Things that would be really compelling. And some of it is where the focus lies. A lot of it is focusing on, like, it's because it's purely from the perspective of Sonny. He's the perspective character the whole time. If he's not seeing it, if he's not hearing it, then you aren't getting it. And I feel like you could have still doing that if you'd spent more time. You could have done this in that same amount of days if you had shown what the characters were thinking, if you had shown things that Sonny wasn't experiencing. But because of that, with its 3-day structure, it ends up, just not really having time, right? And there could have been more time if they had spent more time in the real world, instead of the vastly inferior and less interesting Headspace. Because, like, yeah, sure, the Headspace version of the characters are fun, they're endearing too, I like them all. But, I'm sorry, Dreamworld Aubrey is not nearly as compelling as Real World Aubrey. None of them are, Like, that ain't my waifu. Real World Aubrey with her nail bat, and her cool clothes, and her long flowing pink hair. That's my waifu. Yeah, Headspace Aubrey, not so much. Oh, and the game is easy as shit. Once you figure out the dominant strategy, you can just coast through the whole game. It uses an interesting version of a buff-debuff system, which is an emotional state system. No state is totally positive or negative. Anger makes you stronger, but your defense goes down. Happiness makes you faster and crit more, but also hit less. Sadness makes your defense go up, but lowers your attack. They play off each other with a rock, paper, scissors dynamic. Mad works on sad, sad works on happy, happy works on mad. Here's the issue. You get skills that can eliminate the attack gain from a foe's anger, and you can get skills that make Kel do massive damage to an angry foe if he's happy. So all the bosses end up being the same. Make angry, lower attack, make Kel happy, set Kel up for big damage, do big damage until win. It's not hard. It's like late game Persona 5 where I was just fucking power charge, Brave Blade, power debuff, debilitate, power charge, Brave Blade. Wow, he's dead already. I did like 5,000 damage. The only boss I had any issue with is Perfect Heart, and that's because she's the bullshit super bonus boss in the alternative route. That said, as I stated, most of the game up until the last third of it is equal parts hit and equal parts miss. But from then on, it's just hit, massive goddamn critical hit. The ending is one of the best endings I've ever seen. Absolutely Kino. People say it's the journey, not the destination. But that's bullshit. The destination is very important. And this one is fucking mind-blowing. It makes the harder parts of the journey absolutely worth it. If you want to fall in love with a great cast of troubled characters who could really use some therapy, if you want to delve into the psyche of a mentally unstable teenager, if you want to explore crazy dreamscapes and experience the darkness of the heart, if you want to cry time over the loss of a sweet girl who everybody loved, if you want to question moral quandaries with the nature of right and wrong, if you want to experience a twist that makes some people go, that's retarded, if you want to figure out what the fuck that weird black eye creature that keeps following a warrior around and spooking Sonny is in the mirror is, go play this game. It's coming out on Switch in April too, if you're a Switch baby. It's also on PS4 now, so just make sure you know it's a spooky game. If you're not good with horror, it's not jump scare horror except for a few things, but it got me a few times. It's subtle, psychological, and unsettling imagery. For 90% of its spooks. If you can't handle that, blow your shit out of luck, I guess. Omori is now 2020's Game of the Year. But also it came out December 25th, yeah, Christmas. So maybe it could count as this year's? Well, no, because, and then I go on to talk about Deltarune, but let's get back to the actual games here. Finally, a game that's actually new and not a port or remaster. Stranger of Paradise is a cool game with some fun gameplay and a neato story, and that's all I really have to say about it, because everything interesting about it is a spoiler. Well, aside from Jack just being a fun protagonist, yeah, his soul-defining character trait is that he's angry and wants to kill chaos, but they go all in on that, and it makes for an enjoyable character to watch. He doesn't care about geopolitical situations, what the bad guys are scheming, how he got here, or why he wants to kill chaos. Anything. He doesn't have time for talking, politics, bad guy monologues, none of it. He straight up punches a guy in the middle of his, "Oh, I'm the bad guy of baddiness, I'm so hardcore and threatening, blark, you're a fool to fight me" speech, and it's great. Reminds me of Ashura from Ashura's Wrath. The guy did not give a shit. He just wanted to save his daughter and get revenge. And he's a great character because of it, just like Ashura. My favorite moment in Stranger is when Jack angrily tells someone to watch out for the lasers or whatever, and he responds going, "Geez, sorry." And Jack says, "Oh, no, I wasn't angry. This is just how I am." It's such a fun bit and a good bit of characterization. That's just kind of how he is. It weirdly humanizes him as well as being self-aware. This sort of thing is usually done to excuse bad writing, but here it's good writing. There's twists and turns and a lot of cool story beats. I just wish the game wasn't so difficult. I had to turn it down to easy because I'm bad at Souls games to begin with, and this plays like one of them but faster. Apparently it's all like Neo. This is not in the actual writing, but I've heard it's apparently like Neo. Apparently, it's more. I have that in the. Never mind, it is in there. I was wrong. Apparently, it's more like Team Ninja's Neo, which I doubt I could play that one. Only Souls-like I've beaten was Code Vein, which is a great game. It just had a strong like narrative and not like, oh, you got to find all the hidden lore kind of story, right? That kept me going. It's a good time and I liked it a bunch. Survival Revival and Game of the Year, Signalis. Signalis is a surreal throwback to classic survival horror, looking kind of like an old PS1 or PC game of the time, and taking design cues from Resident Evil and storytelling cues from Silent Hill. It wears its inspiration on its sleeve, and that's okay. It mentions everything it's inspired by in the Steam store page, and what they say is definitely reflected in the game. Silent Hill, Resident Evil, Evangelion, Lovecraft, Alien/Aliens, and Blade Runner all rolled into one, and probably a bunch of other artsy stuff I don't know about. This results in a game with an intriguing, surreal, and existentially scary story, told primarily in notes and through strange Lynchian scenes. A game that plays a lot like a cross between Silent Hill and Resident Evil, and is very challenging and scratches that old-school survival horror itch that I kind of have at all times. It's a complex narrative full of symbolism, and I don't fully understand it, but it doesn't come off as pretentious or as an amalgamation of artsy-fartsy imagery that was just thrown together in hopes it would look deep. There's a concrete story in here. It's just hard to figure out. Many of the clues are given cryptically and are scattered about or are arrived at via metaphors and visuals. It's tough and I haven't figured it all out, but it definitely feels like there's a specific thing to figure out and not just pure interpretation. The world building is also fantastic. It's a very detailed and complex universe, which appears to take place in a future where the Axis power is one, except I don't think they're even from Earth originally. This results in a game having a fantastic atmosphere and aesthetic. The art direction and set design is amazing. I have set in quotations since they're not real sets. It's a cool looking game despite its low polygon count. A variety of interesting and thought-provoking things give you, well, something to think about as you try to survive the techno-hive mind zombies. There are issues. The aiming system isn't great and causes you a lot of trouble, and on the hardest survival setting, the game gets more frustrating than challenging later on. But it's still a good game with some good puzzles that I only needed a guide for a couple times. I enjoyed playing it. I enjoyed the story. I enjoyed the music. I just enjoyed this game a lot. It's creative, literally inspired, and great at recapturing a lot of what made horror games so cool in the 90s and early 2000s, and it's pretty deep and cool. Everything I said, everything is a spoiler, and this vague shit is all I can say. Sorry, and that's basically it. What is this? 2009?